The Bogosity Podcast, early and ad-free. Become a subscriber at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Use the links at donate.bogosity.tv.
Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the week of April 6, 2025, the podcast that the cap fit. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's melanize the news of the bogus. So now, Donald Trump has basically put tariffs on the entire rest of the world. He did so on April 2nd, which he calls Liberation Day. Yay. He's liberating us from our money. Your reminder that a tariff is absolutely a tax that we absolutely have to pay. A Fox News poll showed that 69% of Americans believe that tariffs will make products more expensive, while only 7% say they will reduce prices. 53% say tariffs will harm the economy, and just 28% say they will improve it. Those people are smarter than White House economic advisor Peter Navarro, who claimed that businesses, quote, are going to cut their prices to absorb that. Trump said he doesn't care if this makes foreign cars more expensive, but what about domestic cars that require many parts from overseas? Trump issued a warning to domestic automakers not to raise prices because of tariffs. That's funny, because if what Navarro said were true, why would Trump need to issue them this warning? In case you're wondering how Trump can do that when it's Congress that has the power to levy taxes, Congress published a report confirming that they have given this power to the president. Quote, several statutes authorizing the president or an executive agency to impose tariffs under various circumstances are currently in effect. This report includes a legal overview of 6 such statutes. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Sections 122, 201, and 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, and the International Emergency Powers Act of 1977. These laws afford varying degrees of discretion to the president. Now, you may be thinking of the non-delegation doctrine and how Congress isn't actually allowed to do this. But the Federal Circuit is usually given deference to the president in these cases. That doctrine isn't anywhere near as well supported as it needs to be. So this is a case where both sides are being idiotic. The anti-Trumpers are screeching that Trump is just raising tariffs wildly, when in fact he developed a mathematical formula to adjust the tariffs. On the other hand, the Trumpeters praise the formula without showing how it isn't completely arbitrary and matches reality in any way. The way it works is this. You look at the trade deficit. Longtime listeners will know that there's no such thing. It's actually net foreign investment, more people in foreign countries investing in American businesses than vice versa, and since that affects exchange rates too, the change in rate gives the illusion of some kind of deficit. So previously, tariffs on Chinese imports were 23%, but now we apply the formula. Take our trade deficit with China of $295 billion and divide it by the overall amount we imported from China, or $439 billion, and you get 67%. And that's the new tariff. And for the countries where the U.S. has a trade surplus, did he set the tariffs at 0? No, he set them at 10%. Don't ask me, I don't know any better than you. A lot of attacks have been made because certain countries such as Russia and North Korea aren't on the list. That's because, according to a White House official, these countries, quote, are not subject to the reciprocal tariff executive order because they are already facing extremely high tariffs, and our previously imposed sanctions preclude any meaningful trade with these countries. Trump also said he's considering additional sanctions on Russia to try and bring them to the table and end the war in Ukraine. Easing sanctions could be part of an agreement for a ceasefire. Hey, wasn't he supposed to have ended that war in 24 hours? I think I remember something about that. Meanwhile, the Democrat propaganda network is trying to make fun of Trump because he's so stupid he put tariffs on an island where there's no one but penguins. They're talking about the Heard and McDonald Islands in Australia. Funny thing though, these are reciprocal tariffs, so Trump would only be tariffing them if they were tariffing us. And as it turns out, they export over $2 million a year to the U.S. on an island where no one's living? I think we might have found another money laundering grift. And that's what's going on with the tariffs. No, it's not going to be good for the economy, but we already knew that, didn't we?
Sometimes you just have to stomp some skulls. From the mind of Mr. Dapperton, a game for the ages. In a world where a race of undead furries tries to take over the world's nuclear arsenal, one man must stop them. But which man? You choose. The Orange Overlord.
Oh, my ear!
Bernie Slanders. Debate Dominator.
My kippa's ruined!
Or Joe Sleepy.
Build me back.
And of course, Mr. Fancy Pants himself.
Forget those losers! You can get the Gold Edition and play as 4 more characters, including me, the Spooky Spaceman, along with Billionaire Brat, Professor Proof, and the easiest way to play, as Jesus himself!
7 complete different worlds, with more coming all the time. Full controller support. You can even get eaten by a worm and pooped out into a furry cathedral.
And don't forget that Gold Edition, where you can play the ultimate challenge, Devil's Doorstep.
This gory satirical adventure pulls no punches. You know you want this game. Go to links.pogosity.tv/skullstompers and play Skull Stompers now.
Okay, going back to Adventures in Dogeland, we've got yet another group that's been targeted in their crusade against waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's the Institute of Peace. Everyone who understands Killian's Law, you know immediately what to think of them. Although now we might have what we could call Elon's Law, as he said, quote, "Any government institution is most likely to be the opposite of its name." Anyway, as a recipient of federal funds, Doge wanted to exercise their lawful power and audit where the money was going. And in response, the Institute for Peace deleted a terabyte of financial data. Badly. You know how deleting a file doesn't really get rid of it? Yeah, they didn't. Elon Musk X'd, "They deleted a terabyte of financial data to cover their crimes, but they don't understand technology, so we recovered it." Roll eyes emoji. So after receiving help from both the FBI and Metro Police, Doge was able to access the agency and discovered massive fraud, waste, and abuse, including payments to Iraq and the Taliban. Among the payments was $132,000 to Mohammed Qasim Halimi, former Afghan Minister of Hajj and Religious Affairs and a former member of the Taliban. There were also some boondoggles in there, such as $675,000 for private plane services. The USIP insists it's an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, quote, "dedicated to protecting U.S. interests by helping to prevent violent conflicts and broker peace deals abroad." They also say it was created by Congress in 1984. Oh, and the board members are nominated by the president. Created by Congress, but an independent nonprofit organization. Right. We've seen way too many of those, haven't we? In reality, it's just another interventionist arm of the military-industrial complex. The 300 members have been fired and have until April 7 to clear out their stuff. Overseas members have until April 9 to return to the U.S. And, of course, it was really hard to find a news outlet that would cover it properly. The closest I came to was Revolver, which, of course, is biased the other way, but at least they linked to the information. So, as usual, we're getting more indications of how the corruption is tied to the news media. Seriously, they're supposed to be challenging the government, not running interference for them. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. So if you've been following my channel, you know I've been covering Cadre v. Meta pretty much since the beginning. It's basically the OG AI case, one of the first ones filed and the one that's furthest along. More recently, I covered why AI training is fair use and why it's our fundamental human rights as guaranteed by the First Amendment. Now, an amicus brief from several copyright lawyers is confirming it. Just a brief review. In several other cases, most notably Authors Guild v. HathiTrust and Authors Guild v. Google Books, the courts have said quite clearly if how you use the copyrighted material is non-infringing, then it doesn't matter how you got the material. It's how you use it, not how you get it. It's fair use, not fair getting. You don't have to get permission from a movie studio to review their movie and include clips, and so you don't need to purchase the movie. You can just download it even from a pirate site. That's exactly what the Cadre plaintiffs are looking to change. When getting the training data for their Llama LLM, Meta downloaded a collection of books using BitTorrent. The Cadre plaintiffs are saying that's illegal piracy, regardless of how they ended up using them. Meta's motion for summary judgment goes heavily into fair use, but in the plaintiff's motion, they argued that, no matter what, downloading hundreds of thousands of books can never be fair use, regardless of what you end up doing with them. They wrote, "The uncontroversial implication is that for fair use to apply, the work that was copied must have been lawfully acquired in the first place." Except, it is controversial. It's exactly the argument at the crux of the current motions. And now, an amicus brief is backing up Meta, including law scholars from Harvard, Boston University, Santa Clara University, and Emory University. They start off making a very good point, quote, "Copyright, including fair use, does not seek to benefit the public by improving life in general. It seeks to benefit the public by increasing access to knowledge. And therefore, quote, internal copying made in the course of creating new knowledge is a transformative use that is heavily favored by fair use doctrine. In addition, the cases reject any claimed market for licensing non-consumptive, non-expressive use. The desire to be paid for use does not create a market." See, it's only infringing if you actually read the books you download or redistribute them to others. What Meta did was run them through an algorithm to create an AI model, which is really the result of an overall statistical examination of word use and context. And as I've said several times, if that isn't a transformative use, then what the hell is? They mention another case, Perfect 10 v. Amazon, which found that Google's mass copying of images from pirate sites was fair use since it was for the purpose of creating thumbnails for its image search tool. Quote, "When internal intermediate copying occurs for the transformative purpose of creating new knowledge, courts have routinely found fair use when an entire book is copied." And as they point out, what they're claiming now is nothing new. Quote, "Copyright owners have often predicted that new technologies, from photocopying to home VCRs to the internet, would create disasters for copyright owners and that fair use needed to be shrunk to protect them. Instead, new technologies have routinely created new markets. This history should caution against rejecting the many precedents supporting intermediate copying for the purpose of creating new and useful tools that millions of people use. Whatever the risks of AI, and there may be many, condemning the act of creating large-scale training databases as copyright infringement is not the answer. Meta created an open-source tool that any of us can gain the utility of for free, even running it locally and privately on our own computers. Declaring that to be piracy would be nothing less than a thought crime, preventing Meta's gift to the world from transforming the lives of each and every one of us who decides to reach for it. I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Pagosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Pagosity.tv. And now it's time to dehydrogenate this week's biggest bogon emitter. Oh, you all remember Perkins Coie, don't you? They're the law firm that brought you Mark Elias and Michael Sussman and all of the other ones who colluded with the FBI to set up Trump by spying on his campaign, by fabricating Russiagate and the Steele dossier, whose lawyers knowingly made false statements to the FBI and to Congress, clandestinely worked with George Soros to go against election laws, and was sanctioned by the court for unethical lack of candor, helped to direct misinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop, leaked, sealed, legal, and sometimes even classified information to the media, and engaged in racial and gender discrimination against their own employees. So guess what? The Trump administration says they don't want to hire them as lawyers anymore. Gee, imagine that. In an executive order, Trump wrote, "To prevent the transfer of taxpayer dollars to federal contractors whose earnings subsidize, among other things, racial discrimination, falsified documents designed to weaponize the government against candidates for office, and anti-democratic election changes that invite fraud and distrust, government contracting agencies shall, to the extent permissible by law, require government contractors to disclose any business they do with Perkins Coie and whether that business is related to the subject of the government contract." In addition, the administration revoked all of their security clearances, quote, "pending a review of whether such clearances are consistent with the national interest." So Perkins Coie sued with a briefing that, like so many others we've looked at, consisted of nothing but pounding the table, quote, "The order is an affront to the Constitution and our adversarial system of justice. Its plain purpose is to bully those who advocate points of view that the president perceives as adverse to the views of his administration, whether those views are presented on behalf of paying or pro bono clients." Now check this part out, quote, "The firm is comprised of lawyers who advocate for clients. Its attorneys and employees are not activists or partisans." Folks, that emphasis is theirs, not mine. They actually italicize those words. The screeching continues, quote, "Perkins Coie's ability to represent the interest of its clients and its ability to operate as a legal services business at all are under direct and imminent threat. Perkins Coie cannot allow its clients to be bullied." Now let's get something straight. Trump is not saying that Perkins Coie can't represent defendants against the Trump DOJ. They are only saying that no one in the Trump administration will use their lawyers. They no longer represent the federal government. And somehow, the whiny little brats think they're entitled to that, even though no other law firm is. Quote, "The order's peculiar title betrays its oddity as an executive order, for its purpose is not executive in nature. Rather, the order reflects a purpose that is judicial, to adjudicate whether a handful of lawyers at Perkins Coie LLP engaged in misconduct in the course of litigation and then to punish them." So, would you rather his DOJ indict your law firm like you did to Trump? Jeez. By terminating government contracts with firm clients, thereby driving away current and prospective clients. Wait, so it's a judicial function to say you can't represent the executive anymore? Of course, you guys were the big ones involved in getting the election laws in 2020 reversed by the executive branches in several states, even though the Constitution says that, at least for presidential elections, that can only be done by state legislatures. You went against the legislatures to help state boards of elections go directly against them. So what the hell do you know about separation of powers? Denying all members and employees of the firm access to federal buildings and meetings or other engagement with federal employees? Oh, so you no longer get privileged access that most other law firms don't get? And immediately suspending and possibly revoking security clearance for all firm employees. Yeah, 'cause you kept leaking them to the press! The order imposes these punishments on the entire law firm, even though the attorneys involved in the purported misconduct numbered a mere handful of the more than 1,200 attorneys in the firm, and even though the 2 attorneys the order appears to target have not been with the firm for years. Oh, you mean like when you helped the DOJ target everyone who was there on Jan 6, regardless of whether or not they went into the Capitol or fought with anyone? Look, the only thing that's happening here is that you no longer get to work for and get money from the very people you tried to have put away. You used emergency declarations, helped your clients get away with ignoring signature requirements, postponing ballot collection deadlines, and making all sorts of substantive changes to the election infrastructure solely to stop Donald Trump from winning. In so many different things, you acted corruptly. And they are not in any way punishing you or attacking you or anything else. They're only saying they don't want you as their lawyers. And tough to blame them. Perkins Coie is trying to make this like some sort of due process claim. And it just isn't. It's just revoking your contract. Wait, contract? Hey, wait a minute. Where are you filing this? The D.C. District Court? Another contract dispute in this highly corrupt court that doesn't even have jurisdiction over it? Remember, contract disputes with the federal government have to be heard in the Court of Federal Claims, not District Court. You guys are in the wrong place. But like the others, they're going to the D.C. District because the fix is in. They also claim it's a bill of attainder, ex post facto, ultra vires, denial of right to counsel, and all sorts of mean, nasty, ugly things. There's 43 pages of this garbage. I'm just going to skip to the end. They want the court to, quote, declare the executive order unconstitutional, immediately and permanently enjoin implementation of the order, and grant such other relief as the court deems just and proper. Gee, so sorry you don't get to fleece the taxpayers for hundreds of millions of dollars anymore for your cushy government contracts. Hey, if they're saying that's real and tangible harm and threatens the firm's very existence, are they actually saying they could never make it in the real world and can only survive on the taxpayer's dime? In response to this, in an interview with Nicole Wallace, Mark Elias said,
"You know who instituted a system of justice like this? The Nazis."
Jeez, let's not listen to Mark Elias anymore. Folks, there's only one reason to behave like this. Because they know they've done wrong. They know that they're the ones who tried to turn our justice system into one that more closely resembles Hitler's or Stalin's and Putin's and Zelensky's and Maduro's and Kim Jong-un's by faking evidence against their opponents, by making one bogus lawsuit after another to try and get him taken off the ballot, by trying to get him declared absent any criminal conviction to be an insurrectionist and therefore ineligible, by changing the rules mid-election to favor their candidate, and to help foster misinformation about very serious data coming from a laptop that, as we covered, most certainly would have turned the election against that very same candidate. They know what they've done. It's not in any way a due process violation or anything else to terminate their contracts with them. And so it's not any sort of violation to name Perkins Coie this week's biggest bogon emitter. Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-age children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. And now let's unaccountabilizationify this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
So you remember a few weeks ago when we gave it to Donald Trump for going against Thomas Massie and calling for him to be primaried? Well, he just went and made it worse by endorsing none other than Lindsey Graham. Quote, Senator Lindsey Graham is working incredibly hard for the great people of South Carolina, a state I love and won big in 2016, 2020, and 2024. Lindsey has been a wonderful friend to me and has always been there when I needed him. As the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, Lindsey is fighting tirelessly to grow the economy, lower taxes, and eliminate government waste. Yeah, right. Lindsey is also relentlessly focused on helping us secure the border, stop migrant crime, strongly support our great military/vets, promote American energy dominance, defend our always under siege Second Amendment, and ensure peace through strength. Senator Lindsey Graham has my complete and total endorsement for re-election. He will not let you down. Everyone in South Carolina should help Lindsey have a big win next year. You don't even get to his own comments without encountering the backlash. One of them even wrote, "Which retard advisor of yours typed this? Did they get into Hunter Biden's secret crack stash that he left behind?" Bikers for Trump said, in all caps, "I cannot support a two-faced backstabbing rhino that will try to roadblock MAGA agenda that he doesn't agree with every chance he gets." Proud Army Brat said, "Graham is a warmonger POS snake. He opposed Trump pardoning the J6ers. He voted on a slew of Biden's judicial nominees. He passed all Ukraine aid bills, on and on. This is crazy." Trump's kitten posted on X, and there he goes again, thinking traitors are on his side. Graham, meanwhile, is making hay with campaign ads following the endorsement. But then again, Massie's contributions have never been higher after Trump dissed him, so there you go. 4D chess? Did Trump figure Massie would get this outburst of support? And is he just making Graham spend a lot of money on what might prove to be useless campaign ads? Or is it a lot more likely that Donald Trump is simply this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire?
Well, that wraps up this A Jester Unemployed is Nobody's Fool edition of the Bogosity Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at the Discord, Patreon, or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from John Stuart Mill. How can great minds be produced in a country where the test of a great mind is agreeing in the opinions of small minds? The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.